US dollar and most fiat currencies are government or fiat money. I've never trusted fiat money. Gold is God's money. Silver is God's money. Everybody can afford a $25 silver coin, but most people do nothing. But the good news is you can still make change.
Robert, I've been very much looking forward to this interview. I regard you as, I think, the most influential money philosopher in the world right now. And I think that's really
pretty bad.
Yeah, well, so there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world, and I think we need context, and that's why I'm excited to have this conversation. So let's maybe just start with some of the highlights. You've been around a lot of years. You've seen a lot of cycles, a lot of economic cycles, and so on. And right now we got, we just came out of COVID. Who knows if we're really out of it as far as what the governments are going to do? We've got inflation that is, extraordinary. The so-called pay at the pump, grocery price, all that stuff that's happening. In the meantime, they're printing money in an unprecedented way. Then we have Russia invade the Ukraine. So there's so many things happening all at once. Have you seen anything like this through all your decades in your own life and career, or do you think we're in new territory?
Well, just FYI, on April 8th, I turned 75 years old, so I've been around for a while.
You look great.
And I hate to say this, but I've been a pessimist for much of that time. Mm-hmm. And the reason is I had a sense that what we're experiencing today might happen. Mm-hmm. So while everybody else was dancing with the tulips and floating with the butterflies and positive thinking, I always had this kind of a dark cloud over my head, sensing something wasn't right. And the problem is I never thought it would be this bad. Now, the good news is I prepared for it. Mm. So the good news is as the price of oil goes up, I make more money. When they print more dollars, I make more money. I have nothing in the stock market. And because of this dark cloud over my head, I took a different path in life. And I think that's why I'm upset, I'm disturbed, I don't like what's happening. But I was prepared for it. I just didn't think it'd be this bad.
So, and we've had prior conversations, and you've spoken about the positions you're taking, from a wealth development and protection standpoint prior to a lot of this stuff going on, and so you are prepared, as you said, that as things are happening, because you did anticipate negative things. So it's simultaneously, I guess, disturbing on one aspect, that it's disturbing that it's worse than you even thought. On the other hand, you were prepared because of what you've been doing in the past years. Is it too late for other people maybe to change their positions, or is there opportunity here as we're having this conversation today?
That's a great question, because I personally see this period of time as the worst period of time in history, but the good news is you can still make changes. Mm. But I don't make recommendations. For example, Dave Ramsey is a friend of mine, always says live debt free. Well, I do everything the opposite. I'm $1 billion in debt. Mm. So what I do, I don't recommend people do. And that's kind of the difference here. So the most important thing that people can do is listen to different points of view, like YouTube and podcasts like these will offer different points of view. But I just caution people, I think it's going to get worse.
Worse in what ways do you think?
Civil unrest.
Civil unrest. Okay, so that goes to the extreme.
Right. Well, it's not extreme. I tweeted a few days ago about there was some guy who was shot, and I said it was just starting. Mm. And the number of the violence in the cities has continued to escalate. But that's not a mistake also, because that's why we have defund the police, and they're soft on crime. They leave the southern border open. I mean, this stuff has been, I didn't think it was going to be this bad. I knew they're going to screw it up, but not this bad.
Yeah, what's interesting in some respects is you came up through the Vietnam era, and were fought in the Vietnam War. You'd spoken to that about that before, and there was protests and things back then when all that stuff was going on. But this seems like a different animal when you look at the types of civil unrest that's going on, that's already started today, but also it seems like it could degenerate pretty quickly. And so if you are, and you said you have no money in the stock market, so you're not investing in equities at all. And before we started speaking, you did say that you just bought a gold mine. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I think this show is about money, and the question is, what is money?
You're right.
And money is God. Gold is God's money. Silver is God's money. Copper is God's money. It was put. I'm not really religious. I know you're in Utah. I'm not Mormon. I'm not preaching. I just call it the way I'm a U.S. Marine, and I call it as I see it. God put gold here. God put silver, put copper, and that's why I call it God's money. Bitcoin is people's money. So it's made by the people, and the U.S. dollar and most fiat currencies are government or fiat money. And I've never trusted fiat money.
You started to mention Bitcoin as the people's money. So what is your view right now around crypto? Do you think it's, I guess there's two questions. The moral question, about the fact that there's decentralized finance and non-government controlled currency. But then there's also the practical question, does this have a shot? Do you think that the governments might try to interfere with people investing in this? Where do you think that might go?
Well, let me ask you this. If I went to China and I said, I'm going to start my own little currency, the Chinese government would shut me down.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because they're tyrants. America's going to do the same. So I think we're going to have the Fed coin. And my concern is that's a surveillance technique. So they can interfere with my lives, know what I'm doing, what I'm buying, and all this stuff, tracking devices. So the reason when I understood what Fed coin or the U.S. government coin would do, I became more of an advocate for gold, silver, and in that case, Bitcoin would not fall in that category, because I want money that I can spend that's not traceable. Not that I do anything illegal, but I have boxes and boxes and boxes of silver eagles. That if a push came to a shove, I could pay you in silver eagles.
Right.
It's not traceable. So I hate to say this, but I just tell you the truth. I have this black cloud over my head when it comes to my government. And the reason you mentioned earlier, because as a U.S. Marine flying for the Marine Corps in Vietnam, I got very disenchanted with America.
So when you say America, you mean the American government?
Yeah, because when I was in Vietnam, I went there in 72 and 73. First time was 66. As a student, I went to the academy. And my rich dad wrote me a letter in 72, and he says, hey, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. This is 72. I'm sitting on an aircraft carrier flying strikes into Vietnam. And I go, what the heck does that mean? We're off the gold standard. I didn't know anything. So my co-pilot and I decide, well, let's go buy some gold. So we look at the map of Vietnam, and there's this little hammer and sickle, whatever it is. It says AU, gold. I say, hey, it's a gold mine over here. And so we're off the coast of Vietnam, and we fly. And it's only one problem. The gold mine is now behind enemy lines. And we were losing the war, in other words.
Yeah.
So being Marines weren't that bright. We said, well, let's go anyway. So we flew behind enemy lines, and there's this little Vietnamese woman with red teeth, I'll shoot beetle nut. And I walk up to her, and gold was $35 an ounce, which was started in 1933 with Roosevelt, President Roosevelt. But when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, gold was now pushing 50. So I went from 35 approximately to 50. So I said, well, because we're behind enemy lines, I can buy gold at a discount. So here I am, enemy all over me. I'm standing with this little Vietnamese woman, my co-pilot and I, and we want a discount. She laughs her ass off at us. Here we are, two college-educated Marines. And she looks at us, she goes, spot. I said, what the heck is she talking about? I didn't know what spot meant. Spot. That woman knew more about money than I ever did.
Wow. I have never, I haven't heard that story before. And it's very entertaining, but the real sort of irony in it is Now fast forward, 50 years or so, and now you are buying gold mines. So what's interesting is you had the instinct back then to say, money's taken off the gold standard. Let's go behind enemy lines and buy some gold, and then now here you are buying gold mines, but your understanding of money and why you're buying it is I think a whole different level. But the dynamics haven't changed.
Yeah, well, and it's worse than that because being Marines are not that bright. I'll say it again. Yeah. So I went up to Canada in British Columbia. I love Vancouver, British Columbia, and I went looking for gold mines. And I found one in China. So we bought the biggest gold mine in China. I took it public on the Toronto Stock Exchange. And that's why I don't own any stocks. Is once I found out how the stock market process, how you go from a private placement to taking a company public, I said, I don't trust the stock market either.
Right.
And so then what happened? But wait, it gets worse. So I raised $27 million in Toronto. This is 1990, around 1995, around that. And we took the company public and all this, and we found gold in China. And I found out what country risk means. The frickin' Chinese government took it from us.
Oh.
And so ever since then, I still like Chinese food, but I don't like the Chinese government either. So when this gold mine came up in Utah, it's the biggest, richest gold mine in the world. Nobody knew anything about it because it was already 120 years old. And due to new technology, we went in there, and the veins of gold are so deep in this mine, it's the richest in the world.
Wow.
So that screw up in Vietnam, the screw up in China, helped me make a better decision 3 months ago in Utah.
Wow. So basically, we're seeing, and it's not just the U.S. currency, but all the varying fiat currencies in the world are. Right. I hear the phrase. I kind of like this phrase that maybe we're still the tallest pygmy, but none of them are good, right? So all the currencies are going bad, which has got. So people should be, for lack of a better term, fleeing or moving toward precious metals, maybe Bitcoin, anything else. Like, let's say that I'm somebody who's been working for a couple of decades. I've got some savings, some retirement. I've had money in the market. What advice do you give people? Where could they move now? Is it just as simple as gold, precious metals, and maybe some crypto, or what else do you see? Real estate. How do you feel about real estate right now, given what's going on?
What people don't understand about real estate is debt and taxes. Mm-hmm. So because I make so much money in business, I have to buy real estate with debt so I don't pay any taxes. Mm-hmm. If you get that offset in there. So I make millions of dollars, but I pay no taxes legally because of real estate. Mm-hmm. So I'm always making more money in business, but always investing in real estate. And there's one more form of money. I don't recommend what I do because what I do is pretty outside the box. I buy oil wells. So I have oil wells in North Dakota and Louisiana. And when that communist President Biden shut down the Keystone XL pipeline, he screwed the American public because when he shut down the pipeline, inflation went up. Then he blames Putin for it.
Right.
But when inflation goes up because of oil, and oil runs everything, fertilizer, for your food, for the trucks, for everything, when the price of oil goes up, inflation goes up, but it makes it harder for 50% of the American population. So the irony of it is I get richer, but the American public gets more dangerously towards revolution. And ultimately, I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's what Biden is trying to do, is start a revolution inside this country. So that's why years and years ago, that little Vietnamese woman told me what spot was. It's the price of gold all over the world, idiot. I went, I better wake up here. So that's why I own gold, silver, oil, real estate, and I don't play the stock market. But that's what I do. But I study it for most of my life. So I'm not recommending what I do. I just tell you what I do. So thank you for what you do.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much, Robert.
Thank you. Bye.